Welcome to Alphacenturian. I'll be your guide. Today we are going to be reviewing and discussing Matt Walsh's new film, What is a Woman? The first thing I want to say is that there are a lot of reviews being made out there from people who haven't watched the movie. Those reviews are useless because they make assumptions about what's in the film that never happen in the film. Matt never goes anti-trans, though he does edge close to it when he goes anti-groomer to a school board. And he definitely never touches the LGB or queer issues. The film doesn't go there. And in the film, Matt never goes anti-feminist. In fact, at one point, he takes a radical feminist stance. He also never goes into Christianity and never gives a theological definition of what a woman is. And he is careful never to talk any Christianese in the film. None of that happens. He doesn't even defend the conservative point of view or the Republican point of view in this movie. In fact, you will have to go all the way through the movie before he even gives his own opinion. Now, when he does state his opinion, the film does take a stark turn. And that does change the tone of the film, which had been humorous up to that point. And then it gets kind of dark and kind of serious. But that is not the whole film. It's maybe only 20 minutes of the film toward the end. And the opinion that is given is a watered down version of the opinions expressed on Matt Walsh's Daily Wire show. Now let's talk about the movie as a documentary. It's okay. It's not the best documentary I've ever watched, but it's not the worst. And it's definitely not boring. The first hour is really humorous, and the movie itself ends on a joke where the film does finally give its definition of woman. People who haven't watched the film are saying in their reviews that Matt won't give a definition in his film because he can't. But that just shows that they didn't watch the very thing they are criticizing. This film feels like it's gone through 2 or 3 major shifts during its production process. There is a straight-up documentary in the film consisting of fairly dry interviews. Then there is a mockumentary where a fictional Matt or a dramatized Matt is tortured by the question of what is a woman, complete with sets and in-dream sequences of Matt having a nightmare. Then there is a third portion where publicity stunts and anti-trans propaganda was set up, but never delivered on. This third part, in my opinion, could and should have been cut from the film. It does not fit with the rest of the movie and only acts as a non sequitur transition to leapfrog the film to its ending scene after the film, either through its plotting or editing, paints itself into a corner with no momentum to move itself forward. A solution, and something more on topic, for the film to include instead of Matt's personal mission, which had nothing to do with the topic of the actual film, would have been to have conservative, religious, and biologists give their trite traditional answers here. Not as an answer to the question of the film, but as a reference to previous ways of answering the question. Matt could have then asked, "What is the truth?" question from there, and got into the same ending, skipping the school board and the Dr. Phil appearances that weren't needed, and they felt like padding that was edited in from a different documentary. For instance, he could have had a Catholic apologist say a woman is someone who is normally ordered to being impregnated. But the film never goes there. It never delves into religion, sociology, psychology, biology, nor philosophy. The film never goes in depth on social versus biological distinctions. It never speaks on genetics. The film never talks about fashion and never speaks on societal nor cultural definitions of gender. There are arguments to be made that wearing a dress and having long hair doesn't make someone feminine. And there are arguments to be made that wearing jeans, a muscle shirt, and having short hair doesn't make someone masculine. The film never presents these arguments, though. The film never explains that being a good mechanic and enjoying weightlifting doesn't make someone masculine at all, and that being good at baking and enjoying poetry doesn't make someone feminine at all. There is so much this film could have said. It could have made a case for or against, but it never does. And too many reviewers simply assume the film does, and it never does. This film does not get into secondary or tertiary sexual traits or sexual characteristics, nor does it get into sexual differentiation between genders. The film never speaks on traditional, cultural, or religious distinctions between genders. I don't just mean Christianity, such as with Adam and Eve and gender roles. I mean, it never speaks on any religious view on gender and sex. It never speaks on Taoism and the duality of masculine and feminine energies inside every person regardless of sex, and how the goal in that religion is to find a balance between the two in how you express yourself to the external world. It doesn't talk about the roles of women and men according to Hinduism or according to Buddhism. The film doesn't go there. He just asks one question over and over again. What is a woman? Then nobody wants to answer it for fear of political and social backlash. And that's where the humor comes from. The experts and professionals look foolish when they won't give a non-circular definition to the topic they are supposedly authorities in. Here, I must confess, I've recorded at least 3 versions of this review, and even uploaded an edited down version, but none of them seemed to be able to stay on topic, and all of them got cringy as I tried to share my opinion on the topics the film covered. So I will try to be succinct and more focused this time. In this film, Matt Walsh never gives a solution to any of the complications he brings up. He divides his film into 5 topic sections on his quest to get a single question answered. That question, what is a woman? What are these topics? Trans athletics, shared bathrooms, detransitioning, parents' rights, his personal opinion, and then he ends by looking for an outside perspective. But each is presented as a natural follow-up to what whomever he is interviewing says. I should add here that while the film is unbiased and fair, for the most part, there is one point in the film that Matt does sound like a TERF. And that is when he makes his speech to the school board. The speech is anti-indoctrination and pro-parents' rights, but it is so inconsistent with the tone of the overall film that it can easily be misunderstood as anti-transitioning, which I'm sure Matt is in real life anti-transitioning, but his film never presents that point of view, and thus it does not fit in the film. Following the thread of Matt's questions through implied, but never outright stated consequences of each of the proposed non-answers the experts and professionals interviewed give, we reach the 5-topic structure of the film. One implication is that all sports would have to become open competitions, with the erasure of gender lines, which in the film's unstated opinion would mean lesser capable athletes would no longer be able to compete at the pro level. The second implication is that we would have to build more restrooms and spas to accommodate each person's comfort level and preferences. On parents' rights, Matt just calls the school board sick and interviews a father who lost his rights for not complying with a court order concerning his child's pronouns. And no further implication is given. And then the film shifts tone to move forward. The last tonal shift back to humor does not work. And it doesn't work as a solution to the deficiencies and difficulties the film highlights. And the mockumentary motif at the end seems distasteful. It ends with a joke and his wife giving the film's definition of a woman. A woman is an adult female. Once that is stated, the film ends. For all its entertainment value, the film does falter in a few places. It does not interview enough female detransitioners. And as far as I could tell, it didn't interview any male detransitioners, which is too bad. That would have made the film much deeper and more substantial. He does talk to two major public figures involved in this topic from his side of the camp. He interviews Dr. Deborah So, and he speaks with Dr. Jordan Peterson. So doesn't say anything she hasn't said before, and the Dr. Jordan Peterson segment is more of a pun that sets up the conclusion of the film. To paraphrase, Jordan tells Matt, "What are you asking me for? I'm a man. If you want to know what a woman is, go ask your wife." And so Matt flies back to his home, presumably a studio set, where he goes into his house, and he asks his wife, who may or may not be a hired actress, what is a woman? And his wife answers, a woman is an adult female. The film is a good conversation piece. Matt himself is very fair to everyone he interviews, even to the people who are now saying that they felt tension during the filming. And it is relevant to the current ongoings concerning modern hot topics. But I doubt it will be relevant in 2 or 3 years. As the movie never hits hard enough to move the needle in one direction or another. Matt is playing a character. He is playing an armchair asshole who wants a simple question answered. Haunted by the confusion and non-answers the Western culture at large has presented to him about what a woman is. The film serves as a good catch-up for anyone who hasn't been paying attention to this stuff. But if you're even tangentially familiar with gender-queer issues, this film will do nothing for you, except make you smirk if you are on the right of this issue, or make you shake your head if you're on the left of this issue. I wouldn't avoid this film. The only triggering anti-trans bias comes at about the 1 hour mark, and it only lasts for about 20 minutes before going back to the original tone and theme of the movie. The film is really just so-called experts making fools of themselves and not being able to answer a very basic question. Outside of the school board stunt, Matt is never confrontational in this film. My only other real criticism is not related to the film itself, but to its distribution method. The Daily Wire website and app is a mess, which was not able to handle the traffic they generated on this documentary. Worse, paying between $108 and $180 just to have access to a movie is ridiculous. I understand paywalls, the need to recoup losses and earn profit. But if the Daily Wire is going to host popular content that a general audience will want access to, they need to change their monetization process. Letting the movies they host be available for purchase or rent without a paid membership would go a long way to improving the experience. Peace, like, and subscribe. Comment down below. Let me know what you thought of it. And if you're going to comment on the movie, please have watched the movie. Peace.